Welcome everyone to this deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, where today we will uncover the mystery, history, and incredible value behind the 1974 D Mint Mark 1 cent USA coin, a coin that may look ordinary to the untrained eye but can actually be worth as much as $300,000 because of the unique errors and mistakes that slipped past the mint during its production, making it one of the most sought-after treasures by collectors, enthusiasts, and investors alike. And before we start, it's important to remind everyone that the Lincoln cent has always held a special place in American coinage, not only because of its long history since 1909 but also because of the countless varieties, mistakes, and anomalies that have turned what looks like pocket change into life-changing discoveries. So when we zoom in on the 1974 D penny, we are actually looking at a fascinating piece of numismatic history that has the potential to transform your understanding of how coins are valued, and why errors elevate them to astonishing price points. Now, the first thing to understand is that the 1974 penny comes from a period of great transition in U.S. coinage, because the mint was experimenting with different materials and compositions due to the rising costs of copper. At that time, each cent was composed mostly of copper, and with inflation and the high demand for copper, the mint began testing alternatives like aluminum, which caused a ripple effect in production and led to various misstrikes and error coins that are now worth fortunes. Specifically, the Denver Mint, represented by the D Mint mark, produced billions of coins in 1974, and with such high volume, the possibility of striking mistakes, die errors, doubled dies, repunched mint marks, and planchet anomalies increased dramatically. Collectors today are fascinated by the 1974 D cent because within those billions of coins there exists a small handful with errors that make them stand out, turning them from a face value cent into a six-figure collectible. One of the most dramatic and exciting possibilities is the existence of transitional errors, meaning some 1974 pennies were accidentally struck on aluminum planchets instead of copper. And though most of those aluminum cents were recalled and destroyed, rumors and verified cases show that a few survived, and when they carried the Denver Mint mark, their rarity skyrockets because most aluminum cents were struck in Philadelphia without a mint mark, so a 1974 D aluminum cent becomes an extreme rarity, with only a handful known to exist, and their estimated values run into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Another category of error that makes 1974 D pennies incredibly valuable is the doubled die, which occurs when the hubbing process of the die shifts or misaligns, causing parts of the design to appear doubled, often in the lettering such as "Liberty in God We Trust," or the date itself. Collectors who find a strong doubled die 1974 D cent can be looking at a coin worth tens of thousands or more depending on the severity of the doubling, the sharpness of the strike, and the overall condition of the coin. And speaking of condition, grade plays a massive role in the value of rare coins because a 1974 D era coin in circulated condition might fetch hundreds or thousands, but in uncirculated or high mint state condition with original luster intact, it can skyrocket in price, sometimes into the hundreds of thousands, which explains why grading services like PCGS or NGC are so crucial for verifying authenticity and assigning the right value to these coins. Moving further, another error type that makes the 1974 D cent fascinating is the repunched mint mark, commonly abbreviated as RPM, because during the 1970s mint marks were still manually punched into dies, and sometimes the punch would not align perfectly, requiring a second or even third punch, which left behind visible shadows or doubling in the D. These RPM varieties are especially sought after by collectors who specialize in Lincoln cent varieties, and certain rare RPMs can drive values up tremendously. But the story does not stop there. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and cuds are all mistakes that can occur in minting and can transform a regular penny into a piece worth thousands. For example, an off-center strike where the design is dramatically shifted but still shows a clear date and mint mark can be highly valuable, while a clipped planchet where a portion of the coin is missing due to a faulty blank punch can also be collectible and rare. Another fascinating aspect of the 1974 D cent is the experimental phase surrounding it, because at that time the government had distributed experimental aluminum cents to members of Congress and officials, but most were ordered to be returned and melted down. However, some escaped. And though ownership of aluminum cents has been controversial and even legally challenged, collectors place enormous value on them due to their extreme rarity and the story behind them. So imagine finding a 1974D aluminum cent in your collection. It would be like holding a piece of American coinage history that almost never saw the light of day, and the price tag could easily reach $300,000 or more depending on market demand, authenticity, and condition. But even aside from aluminum strikes, 1974D copper cents with dramatic doubling, Ms. strikes, or RPMs are also capable of commanding extraordinary prices, especially since Lincoln cents have a massive collector base worldwide, making demand for rare varieties incredibly strong. What makes these coins even more valuable is the historical context. Because 1974 was just before the big changeover in 1982 when the composition of the penny officially switched from mostly copper to mostly zinc. So the 1974 pennies represent the end of an era, and when you add in the fact that Denver produced billions, meaning quality control had more chances to slip, you get a perfect storm of possible era coins that today are worth life-changing amounts. Collectors always advise searching your pocket change, coin jars, or inherited collections carefully because a simple overlooked coin could be the very treasure that puts you on the numismatic map. Imagine the excitement of finding a coin with a strong double die on Liberty, or a repunched mint mark that clearly shows two DS overlapping, or discovering a slightly off metal strike where the coin weighs differently than normal because it was struck on the wrong planchet. Such details are often dismissed by casual observers but are the very clues that point to an extraordinary rarity. And when authenticated by a professional grading service, these small details can mean the difference between 1 cent and $300,000. It is also worth noting that auction records reveal just how passionate collectors are about these coins, with examples of rare 1974D varieties fetching staggering amounts when they cross the auction block, and every time a new discovery is made, the buzz in the coin community reignites, making headlines and drawing attention to the incredible possibilities hiding in plain sight. And that's why many experts say you should never underestimate any coin, especially those from high mintage years like 1974. Because within those billions may lie the rare misstruck jewel that turns a cent into a fortune. In summary, the 1974D 1 cent coin is valuable not because of its ordinary copper composition but because of the rare and fascinating errors that make certain examples extraordinary. Whether it is an aluminum transitional strike, a bold double die, a dramatic repunched mint mark, or other striking errors, these mistakes represent accidents at the mint that collectors now pay huge premiums for. And the possibility of discovering one of these coins in your own collection is what makes the hunt so exciting. So the next time you come across a 1974D penny, do not dismiss it as just another old coin. Take the time to examine it carefully, weigh it, look for doubling, inspect the mint mark, and consider getting it graded, because what you hold in your hand might just be worth $300,000 or more, making it not only a piece of history but also a potential treasure waiting to be found. And this ongoing fascination with Lincoln cents ensures that stories like the 1974D penny will continue to captivate audiences, inspire collectors, and prove that sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest value. So always keep searching, always keep learning, and always remember that even a simple 1 cent coin can change your life forever if it happens to be the right one with the right mistakes. Next, 1981 cent USA coin, another exciting exploration into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and unbelievable values, where today we shift our attention to a coin that most people would overlook as just another ordinary piece of pocket change, but which can in fact transform into a life-changing discovery if it contains the right errors, mistakes, or unusual characteristics. And that coin is none other than the 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln 1 cent from the United States, a coin that under special circumstances can be worth an astounding $400,000. And what makes this story so thrilling is the fact that millions upon millions of these coins were struck, circulated, and passed through countless hands, yet within that ocean of common sense exist rare anomalies that stand out like diamonds in the rough. And if you are one of the lucky people who happens to come across such a piece, then you might be holding a treasure worth more than most luxury cars, houses, or even life savings. So let us dive into the incredible details, history, and errors that make the 1980 no-mint Mark 1 cent so valuable. And to begin with, it's important to understand the context of the Lincoln cent during the year 1980. Because by that time the penny had already been in circulation for over 70 years since its original debut in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and over those decades it had seen design modifications, minting advances, and numerous error varieties that made certain years stand out as valuable collectibles. Now, when we come to 1980, the majority of cents were still being produced with their traditional copper alloy composition, specifically 95% copper and 5% zinc. But the mint was already preparing for a major shift, which came just 2 years later in 1982 when the composition was changed to copper-plated zinc due to rising copper costs. So the 1980 penny represents one of the final years of the heavy copper cents, and that in itself makes it interesting to collectors. But when we add in errors, mistakes, and the absence of a mint mark, we suddenly uncover a world of rarity and potential value, because unlike coins struck in Denver or San Francisco which bear the D or S mint mark, pennies struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1980 did not carry a mint mark at all. And that is what we mean when we say 1980 no mint mark penny. It is a coin struck in Philadelphia, and while at first glance that may not sound unusual, since Philadelphia had a long history of omitting mint marks on its coins, what transforms certain 1980 no mint mark pennies into six-figure rarities are the bizarre production errors and anomalies that occurred during that year. One of the most fascinating and valuable categories is the double die error, where the hubbing process of the die shifted slightly between impressions, causing the design elements to appear doubled. And in the case of a 1980 no mint mark penny, strong doubling can sometimes be seen in Liberty in God We Trust, or the date, 1980, itself. These doubled die varieties are extremely collectible and can range in value depending on strength and clarity, with minor doubling bringing hundreds or thousands, but strong dramatic examples potentially commanding hundreds of thousands when paired with high mint state grades. Imagine pulling a penny from your change jar and noticing that the numbers on the date appear clearly doubled. That alone could catapult your coin into the ranks of extreme rarity. But doubled dies are not the only anomalies that collectors crave. Another class of valuable errors are off-metal strikes, meaning that during production a coin was accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination. For example, a 1980 penny struck on a dime planchet, or even on a foreign coin blank. And these errors result in coins with unusual weights, sizes, or appearances that instantly alert sharp-eyed collectors to their rarity. And when authenticated by grading services such as PCGS or NGC, these off-metal errors can bring tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands at auction. Another error that makes the 1980 no mint mark penny spectacularly valuable is the off-center strike, where the die does not align properly with the blank, causing the design to be shifted off balance. And the most valuable examples are those struck far off center while still retaining a complete visible date, because the date provides authentication and confirmation of the coin's identity. Without the date, the value can be significantly reduced, but with it, collectors will pay incredible premiums. And when we are talking about a well-preserved, uncirculated example from 1980, the numbers can soar astronomically, pushing into six-figure territory. And let's not forget about repunched mint marks, which were common sources of rarity in earlier years, but by 1980 mint marks were no longer punched manually at Philadelphia since there was no mark to begin with. However, what makes the 1980 no mint mark pennies intriguing is the possibility of machine doubling, die deterioration doubling, and unusual striking anomalies that create the illusion of multiple design layers, which when combined with exceptional condition create highly desirable varieties. Another layer of fascination comes from die cracks, cuds, and breaks, where the die itself begins to fail during production, leaving raised lines or extra metal blobs on the coin, and collectors love these dramatic flaws because they represent unique snapshots of minting history, making each coin essentially one of a kind. And when these occur on 1980 no mint mark pennies, they can become extremely valuable, especially in large or dramatic examples. Now, one of the most legendary possibilities surrounding late 1970s and early 1980s cents is the accidental striking of experimental or transitional planchets. because as the mint prepared for the big composition change in 1982, there were tests and trials taking place. So a 1980 penny struck on an unusual metal composition, such as a copper-plated zinc blank introduced earlier by mistake, could be extraordinarily rare, and when combined with the no-mint mark Philadelphia strike, it could become the ultimate jackpot coin worth up to $400,000. This is not mere speculation, as transitional errors have been documented across various years whenever metal composition changes were underway, and those few surviving specimens have consistently brought massive prices at auction. Another factor that drives value is grade and condition, because coins are graded on a scale from poor 1 to mint state 70, and the higher the grade, the sharper the details, the stronger the luster, and the more appealing the coin is to collectors. So even a minor error in low grade may only be worth a small premium. But that same error in brilliant uncirculated mint state condition can suddenly be worth tens of thousands or more, and when you combine a dramatic error like a double die or off-metal strike with a pristine grade from PCGS or NGC, that is where the six-figure values arise, sometimes pushing into the $400,000 range as collectors compete fiercely for ownership of these rare anomalies. And the auction records prove it, as examples of Lincoln cents from nearby years with dramatic errors have sold for hundreds of thousands. Meaning that the 1980 no-mint mark penny absolutely has the potential to achieve such prices under the right circumstances. What makes the hunt so exhilarating is that these coins are still out there, hidden in collections, piggy banks, or even loose change, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a bit of knowledge to uncover them, and that's why so many numismatists advise hobbyists to always check their coins carefully under magnification, to weigh them for off-metal strikes, to look for doubling in the lettering and date, and to keep an eye out for dramatic die cracks or off-center designs, because any one of these features could mean the difference between a common cent and a fortune of $400,000. Another fascinating aspect of the 1980 no-mint mark penny is its place in American history, because 1980 was a time of transition, with economic challenges, rising metal costs, and debates about whether the penny should even continue. Yet despite all this, billions of them were struck and released into circulation, and the irony is that while most were destined to be spent, lost, or hoarded in jars, a select few were minted with extraordinary errors that would one day make them priceless treasures. And so the 1980 penny stands as a reminder that mistakes can often be more valuable than perfection, and that even something as small as a cent can embody history, rarity, and wealth. What is also incredible is the psychology of collecting. Because when word spreads about a certain year or variety fetching astronomical sums, it ignites a wave of interest and searching, and that demand pushes values even higher, meaning that as more people learn about the potential of the 1980 no-mint mark penny, the competition grows fiercer, and the market responds with soaring prices, sometimes well beyond initial estimates. And this creates a cycle where rarity, demand, and excitement feed into one another, driving these coins to legendary status. So when we say a 1980 no-mint mark penny can be worth $400,000, we are not just talking about numbers, but about a real marketplace, where collectors with deep pockets are ready to spend whatever it takes to own a piece of numismatic history. And the possibilities do not stop there, because within the 1980 production there may still be undiscovered varieties waiting to be catalogued, meaning that someone examining their coin jar today could very well discover a new era variety that shocks the numismatic world and sets new records. And that is why this subject is so thrilling, because the adventure never ends, and the treasures are still out there. So as we close in on the heart of the matter, remember that the 1980 no-mint mark penny's value of $400,000 is rooted in its rare and dramatic errors like double dies, off-metal strikes, off-center strikes, die cracks, and transitional planchets, combined with condition and collector demand. And when you put all of these factors together, you see why a single penny could change someone's life. So the next time you pick up a 1980 no-mint mark penny, don't dismiss it, don't spend it. Don't let it slip through your fingers without careful inspection, because hidden in that tiny copper coin may be a mistake so rare and valuable that it elevates it into the ranks of the most expensive Lincoln cents ever known. And finding one is not only about luck but also about knowledge, patience, and passion. And that is what keeps collectors searching day after day, year after year. Because the dream of turning a penny into $400,000 is alive, real, and waiting to happen for someone who is attentive enough to recognize history when they hold it in their hand.